Can I just say I was expecting Ian Jameson, my planning consultant, so whether he's late for any reason.
He is in the meeting.
Is he?
Yeah.
We've got to see him.
We're now live.
Okay.
I think everybody's here that's expected, aren't they? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Act Subcommittee. I'm Louise Prince, the solicitor advising the committee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. A video and audio of the meeting and the papers shown on screen will be publicly available on the council's website after the hearing. This meeting is being held using remote technology, and should any committee member experience technical difficulties during the meeting, they should immediately contact the designated IT officer on the number they've already been supplied with. Please mute your microphones unless you are asked to speak, and only use the chat function to indicate that you wish to speak. Do not use it for anything else, so that it is clear who is asking to speak and the debate can be heard by those listening to the audio feed. The chair will interpret the council's existing standing orders as considering the requirements of remote participation with advice from the monitoring officer prior to making a ruling. At the start of the meeting, I will ask members of the committee, officers and those making representations to confirm their presence. Everyone that speaks during the meeting is asked to introduce themselves each time they speak so that those listening know who is speaking. So I'll just do the roll call quickly now. Councillor Roy Oldcroft.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Jones.
Present.
And Councillor Keith Roberts.
Present.
Ross O'Neill, Licensing Officer.
Present.
And Tim Ward, Committee Officer. Present. Thank you. We have no responsible authorities attending the hearing today. So then those persons making representations, Mr. and Mrs. James Lloyd.
Yes, James Lloyd's here.
Thank you. Paul Higgins. Mr. Higgins, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. And I've also got Lalaji Bown. Sorry, I apologize if I've mispronounced your name. I understand you're only here to support the case made by Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Higgins. You're not actually making representations of your own.
Oh, no, I'm supporting them. I'm the neighbour, the third neighbour in the court.
That's fine. Just to remind you though, Ms. Bown, that you're not able to make your own representations during this hearing. Okay, then we have Belinda Griffiths, who is the applicant.
I'm present.
Thank you. Deborah Greeno, who's the applicant's agent.
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. And Ian Jameson, who is the applicant's planning consultant.
Present.
Oh, Mr. Jameson, you're very quiet there.
Okay. Present. Yes.
Mr. Jameson, are you able to get any closer to your microphone? Because I'm struggling to hear what you're saying.
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Thank you. We're now turning to the items on the agenda. The first item is the election of chair for this morning's meeting. Can I please have any nominations for the position of chairman?
Yeah, Councillor Keith Roberts, I propose Councillor Simon Jones be chair for this meeting.
Thank you. And any seconders?
I'll second that, Simon Jones for chair.
Thank you. And according to the agenda, we'll now take a vote. So I'll read out the names of the committee members present and entitled to vote on this item, and then confirm the result of the vote. So, Councillor Oldcroft, do you vote for Simon Jones to be chair?
Sorry, yeah, I had trouble with my mic. Yes, 4.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
4.
And Councillor Jones?
Fait accompli, 4.
That's 3 votes. Thank you. Simon, Councillor Jones, it's over to you now.
Right, thank you. The committee has read and considered the representations and evidence submitted by all parties in relation to the application. Therefore, presentations should be succinct and kept to a brief summary of the key points. There is no need to read out written representations or reiterate the details of written representations at great length. The chair will intervene if it is felt that presentations are becoming overly long or are going off track or do not relate to the application being considered. The procedure for the hearing has been sent to you prior to the hearing. In general, we will aim to keep to this order of business to ensure the timely and fair conduct of the hearing for all parties. If it is felt necessary during the course of the hearing, the committee may make the decision to deviate from the procedure. This is at the committee's discretion. There are opportunities throughout the hearing for each party to ask questions of others following their presentations. Please ensure that you use this opportunity to ask questions only and not to make any further points or statements. It is for the chair to decide if questions are appropriate and relate to the matter in hand. Any behaviour considered to be disruptive by the chair may lead to parties being muted or asked to leave the hearing. Does anyone have any questions regarding the hearing process or how the hearing will be conducted? No. Right. So if there are no questions about how the process of the hearing and how it will be conducted, I continue. Let's have a look. I've got a question for the licensing officer. Have any of the representations made been withdrawn?
Morning, Chair. The representations from Environmental Health was withdrawn, but all outstanding other persons are here present today, the two.
Thank you. Question for all parties. Would any party present like to withdraw their representations? No. Okay. Does any party have any evidence not already submitted which they would like to put forward for consideration? Please be aware that this can only be done with the agreement of all other parties present and the subcommittee, and may necessitate the hearing being adjourned so it can be properly considered by all parties and the subcommittee. Are there any such additional evidence?
Yes, please. If it's possible, I would like to, when I do my presentation, I have photographs of those people that, because of COVID, have not been able to come to the premises, the actual, what we're here for. That I do have photographs that clarify what the garden looks like.
Yeah, I think actually we had copies of photographs.
I have one of the...
These additional photographs, are they?
Yeah, one of the fire pit and one of the before and after of what I've done to the garden. It helps show the garden. It's very difficult for people to make comments on somewhere they've not actually, been able to see. So they're just photographs.
Right. So I need to consult all other parties to see whether or not they're happy to accept,
Okay.
That additional evidence.
Can I comment that I've
Sorry, who's speaking now?
Paul Higgins, neighbour. I provided photographs taken by Historic England of the site and the site survey, documentary evidence of that, which shows extensive detail of the site, and I've given that as part of the planning representation. If additional photos are going to be allowed, then I think the extensive photos of the site before repair was done to the wall should also be considered, and the photos that I've taken of the site after, showing the building development. I've got those here, and I would like those to be considered if the site photographs are being offered from the applicant.
Right, thank you. Okay. Right, so I'll need to speak to the committee members now to see whether or not they are happy to accept the additional evidence from the applicant, and then also about accepting the evidence from Mr. Higgins.
Chairman, it's Councillor Allcroft. Chairman, Councillor Allcroft.
Yeah.
Just a point. How do we view these in terms of the technical side of actually viewing them for each of? I don't know whether the cameras on everybody's laptops are going to be able to reproduce these so we can see and get the benefit of these photographs.
Yeah. Keith?
Yeah, Keith Roberts. Yeah, that was exactly the same question. How are we going to share these? How are we going to view them via IT? And I'm a little bit confused because Mr. Higgins says he supplied his photographs to the planning department, and yet, am I right in thinking that the photographs that he relates to haven't been provided to the licensing department?
No, my understanding from what Mr. Higgins said is that is those were presented with his objections to the planning application. So we wouldn't have seen them because the planning application, we're not discussing the planning application. We have nothing actually to do with regards to the planning application. We're purely discussing the licensing application. So those photographs wouldn't have been shared with the licensing panel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for clarifying that, because I think there might be some confusion.
Yeah,
it's just licensing we're dealing with today.
Could I make a point? It's James Lloyd, who's a resident. Chair?
Yes, carry on.
So within the applicant's application, she relies on two structures to prevent smoke from the.
Can I interject there? That we're actually discussing about additional evidence being provided. So I mean that is part of your. I'm presuming part of your representation, so that will be taken up, at the appropriate time. It's not actually with regards to what we're discussing at the moment. Okay. Now, for some reason, my camera has frozen. Has it frozen to you? It's just frozen on my screen.
No, you're frozen on our screens as well, Chair.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll continue to be. You'll be able to hear me. Right. Well, I think from that conversation that we've just had, we're not going to be able to accept that additional evidence today. So it would be whether or not we adjourn the hearing to receive that evidence, and then it be shared with all parties, or we continue, as we are at the moment without that additional photographic evidence.
Chair, I wonder whether it's worth checking with Tim whether there's a way of getting them up on the screen. Right. If they can be emailed. I don't know whether that's possible, Tim.
Can I just say something? Sorry, this is Belinda. I don't think they're that important. It was just to actually show, because if people have not set foot in there, it just made my case, like it's a bit more visible, really. So it's not a massive issue.
Yeah.
It just, if I could have, I would have held one up to show you in front of the screen. But
yeah, but that is, as the other committee members have said, that wouldn't actually provide,
yeah, I know.
you know, clear enough evidence,
Yeah.
information. So you're happy to withdraw the
Yeah.
offer of that additional representation, and because of that, I'm assuming, Mr. Higgins, you're withdrawing your offer of additional evidence of your photographs.
Well, I'd like to just ask Ross if he has seen those photos, that the additional emails that I've submitted to Shannon Franklin and other members, because I've sent Ross several emails about the matters. So have you seen the documentary evidence and photographs that I sent, Ross?
Yeah, any additional information that was sent to and CC'd licensing is not being included in this. The representations we received, photographs attached, and that is all the committee will be considering today.
Right, but you have received them.
I've been part of CC'd information. I've not seen any photographs, no. And it's this, I'm the licensing officer putting the case forward. It won't be for me making any decisions today.
Fair enough. So what I'm saying is the documentary and photographic evidence has been submitted, but since no additional photographs are being submitted here, the photographs are very important because they're part of the original site, the site survey from August 2015, prior to the restoration of the walls. So I accept the fact that they can't be admitted for this discussion.
Yeah, as I'll reiterate again as well that we are here to discuss the licensing application only. Nothing at all to do with the planning application. So any details or comments with regards to a planning application cannot be heard at this meeting, and I will rule, you know, to stop any conversation going on with regards to the planning application. Okay. Right. Next on the agenda then is disclosable pecuniary interest. Members are reminded to disclose any pecuniary interests in any matters to be discussed, which is not included in the register of interests. If, following the declaration of an interest, any party feels a member's decision making may be prejudiced, then they should make it known. The hearing may then need to be adjourned so the committee can be reappointed. So I'll read out each member's name and ask them to confirm any interests. Roy Allcroft?
No pecuniary interests. Chair.
Thank you. Myself, Simon Jones, I have no pecuniary interests. And Councillor Keith Roberts?
I have no pecuniary interests either, Chair.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chair. Why was since the environmental health is an important aspect of the licence, particularly for public nuisance, do we have any reason as to why the environmental health submission was withdrawn?
Yes, the environmental health comments were withdrawn because the suggestion they made was with regard to a reduction in days that the top terrace be used, and the applicant agreed to those recommendations. So the current application that we're discussing actually has restricted days of the top terrace. I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The top terrace would not be is not being included in the licence application on those 3 days.
Chair, the other aspect of the comments that environmental health posed concerned noise, smoke and odour, which obviously is a very important aspect of environmental health and the licence. And those comments are significant in relation to the granting of the licence. And they also refer to the building, the unapproved building development that's taken place. So I suggest that those comments need to be seen by everybody, because initially the Public Protection Officer for Environmental Health objected to the licence, and then, as in his own words, at the 11th hour, he withdrew that objection. And part of that withdrawal was on the basis of the building, which is the kitchen, which he called the barbecue. So I believe that it's important transparency that all of the submissions for environmental health should be made available, because not only has the objection been withdrawn, it means that environmental health are not present to consider one of the crucial aspects of the license, and they have withdrawn their previous objection, which is not satisfactory to simply say.
Chair, if I may interject here, Chair, it's Louise Prince, legal advisor. This is not a matter for discussion now, and it's not a matter to be put before you. It will be covered, hopefully, in the licensing officer's report, the procedure that's been followed. If the environmental health officers choose to withdraw their objection, that is their prerogative. They're not required, if they withdraw their objection, they're not required to attend the hearing. I suggest we move on to the licensing officer's report, which hopefully will shed some light on what the position is now.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Louise. I was about to actually interject there with Mr. Higgins, because we were going off piste a bit there. But certainly the objections, the reasons for the objections being removed, it is recorded. We've all had the documents. Page 39 of the presentation pack that we've had actually fully explains those. So we'll move on to the licensing officer's report. Can the licensing officer introduce themselves and present their report, please?
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, other committee members. I'm Ross O'Neill, Public Protection Officer, working within the licensing team and responsible for today's report. So you're here to consider a new premises application for Belinda Griffiths at Blue Bar 19 Walcott, Shrewsbury, which is a premises located within the town centre of Shrewsbury. The area is predominantly terrace properties with a mix of commercial businesses and residential properties, and currently the premises operates as a shop, but would like to license the rear of the premises, which is set between a lower walled courtyard and a top terraced garden. Part of the report shows Appendix A and B, which is a map showing the location and a few photographs to set the scene for yourselves. Belinda is not applying to license the shop, but the patrons would have to enter and exit via the shop for access to the garden, where she wants to offer an alfresco eating and drinking establishment. This application is for the months of April to September only, so 6 months of the year only. The garden previously operated on temporary event licenses last summer, and they also applied for premises license. However, this was withdrawn due to issues being raised in relation to a staircase, which has now been removed. Deborah, who is also present today, has been acting as the agent and assisting the applicant Belinda in this process. The original application is attached, that's Appendix C, and the plan showing access via the shop, but only the garden licence for on-sale consumption is Appendix D. Due to the withdrawal of the Live Music Act 2012, which amended the Licensing Act 2003, if granted, the applicant will be entitled to live and recorded music until the 2300 hour mark. During consultation, planning did make comment only, no representations, comment only on this application. They have received an application for the change of use and are considering the proposed use for the maximum capacity of 50 persons between April and September months. They do not object. However, state planning consent would need to be approved before these proposed activities can take place if granted today. That is part of the report. You can see what the officer stated. There has been representations. It's been discussed already. Environmental Health Officer did submit representations due to concerns of the potential nuisance from noise, smoke and odours. This has been withdrawn. It's Appendix E of the report. So Appendix E is the, although withdrawn, I've included his full statements and representations within the report so the committee can read it and see what was discussed and what's been agreed. This reflects my report now. So the application of Belinda is the original application, and my report now reflects the agreements between Environmental Health and Belinda compared to the original application. You will note the varied times, the separation of the two gardens and additional conditions now within that report following that representations. The representations, as stated, has been withdrawn. It's Environmental Health Officer's decision not to come to the hearing today. Any authority are entitled to come to the hearing today, whether or not they've got representations in, and no authority is present in the room to put any further information on the table. There has been 2 other persons submitted representation during the consultation period, both present today. They have concerns in relation to the 4 licence objectives, predominantly the noise, smoke, odour, fire elements. Correspondence has been had between myself and the applicant, the agent, the authorities and other persons. However, the 2 other persons' representations still stand, and Belinda has also provided supporting information in relation to those representations. Separate emails were sent to all parties, so you should all have those documents to reflect back on today. So why are you here today? So committee members, you're here to consider and determine the application, and to do this you must 1, give appropriate weight to the promotion of the 4 licence objectives, 2, any representations and some supporting information, 3, the 182 guidance of the Licensing Act 2003, and 4, Shropshire Council's licensing policy, which is dated 2019 to 2024. You may grant the application in full or in part, subject to such conditions deemed necessary and appropriate to the 4 licensed objectives, or you can refuse if deemed appropriate for the 4 licensed objectives. In relation to your justification, your decision must be justified with supporting evidence. All involved parties will receive the decision notice, and all involved parties can appeal the decision to court within 21 days of them receiving that decision. That's it for now, Chair, from me.
Thank you, Ross, for that. Right, you'll now have an opportunity to ask any relevant questions of the licensing officer. Please indicate on the chat function if you wish to speak. Please remember that when asked to speak, you should unmute microphones, state your name and remute on completion. The order that I will take the questions is, first, responsible authorities. There are no responsible authorities present. 2 other persons. This would be the objectors, other persons apart from the applicant or the committee. So do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions on the licensing officer's presentation?
I'm sorry, I've lost my chat thing. May I make a minor correction and then ask a question? Strategy bound. I'm supporting the my colleagues in the.
Sorry, if I can just interrupt there. You can't actually take part.
No, I can't speak at all. Even to ask. I can't ask a question.
No, you can't, because it was explained to you by our legal, that you wouldn't actually be able to take part in the meeting because you hadn't. Do you want to just reiterate that, Louise?
No, I apologise. I misunderstood. When it said I was here only to support, I thought it meant I could only talk about the content of my colleague's thing. I didn't realise it meant I couldn't speak. I apologise.
No, that's okay.
Chair, I wonder, as apologies, your surname has just slipped past me. Miss Bowen is here in support. If she has maybe wonder if she has a question that is not going to be asked by any of the other applicants, then I don't think it would do any harm to allow questions. It's more further representations that shouldn't really be permitted.
Right. Okay. With that ruling, then I will let you ask that question if you had a question of the licensing officer.
Right. First question is, would you please make it absolutely clear that the garden behind the shops on Wild Cop, that they are residential? I think that wasn't quite clear. And secondly, can I ask why you call all these people, you call all of us by surnames and you call the applicant Belinda? I wonder whether that indicates a a closer relationship between the applicant and the licensing officers. I apologise for that, but I think it is an important matter when we're dealing with such an important issue. And more frivolously, thirdly, is it somehow that only on certain days of the week that there is noise and light? That's to say that if they cancel off Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, there won't be any light and noise on the rest of the week.
All right, thank you. Ross, have you got a response?
Yeah, Chair, I think there's one question there. Yeah, that amplifying the residents, that's more than ample point if that's to be made. In relation to my report and use of wording and names, yeah, point taken. There's it's the report and the applicant is Belinda Griffiths, and there is representations on the table. I also haven't mentioned names of authority officers, whether that's something that the committee wants to consider, or whether it's something I should be changing in the future, then obviously I'll listen and take note, but I'm not sure it's a question that's relevant today.
I have a question. Are they, because
you need to introduce yourself first, please,
yeah,
because members of the public are listening, can listen to this, but they can't actually see.
Sorry, I apologise for that. Paul Higgins, neighbour. Yeah, I have a question for Ross. Has the application been rewritten now so that the terms that you've described are explicitly written into the licence? Because if it hasn't, and it's still for 365 days a year, it won't be enforceable.
Paul, it's Ross. The license, the application doesn't get rewritten. Any amendments are received via email and they're attached to our system. The licence has not been granted. The licence has not been written up. We're still in the consultation period. If the licence doesn't get granted, no licence gets written. However, all information is on the system, and if the licence is granted with other conditions or times, it's then processed by the licensing officer with all those emails. So it's all on the system awaiting any authorisation.
So just following that then, so you can guarantee that any licence granted would be only for 6 months, not for 365 days a year?
Yes, I can guarantee that's the application. The application is 6 months a year only. That's not up for discussion today.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. It's James Lloyd, neighbour. Ross, if you had a neighbour who had a barbecue in their garden with 50 people 4 days a week for 6 months of the year, how would you feel?
That's not an appropriate question.
That isn't an appropriate question for the licensing subcommittee. So Ross would need to answer that.
Can I ask the parameters, the questions which are appropriate?
Specifically to do with the application that we're discussing.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Chairman, one question, Councillor Allcroft.
No, we're not. Subcommittee can't ask questions yet. It's down to the applicant now. Has she got any questions she wants to ask of the licensing officer's report?
This is Belinda speaking now. I've got no questions at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, subcommittee. Councillor Allcroft.
Yes, Chairman. Just to point out that the information that was asked for regarding environmental health is on pages 39 and 40 of the report issued to us all prior to the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Have you got any questions at all, Roy, of the licensing officer's report? No, right. Councillor Roberts?
No questions, Chair.
Right. I've got one question. It's just it's the query with regards to the change in the hours, where the terrace opening times that the terrace will be closed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This, I assume, the terrace being closed would mean that the cooking facilities would be closed off as well, because they're all based on the located on the top terrace. Am I right in thinking that is the intention of those restrictions of the 3 days?
Chair, that's my understanding. Obviously, it would have to be clarified with the applicant, but also could be enforced with further conditions if there is ways forward as well.
Yeah, and another question from looking at the drawings. Am I right in believing that the bar is actually situated on the top terrace?
Yes, that's correct. There is a bar stipulated on the top terrace. However, as you'll see from the plan, there is a red line around both the bottom and top terrace. So as long as no fixed furniture was put there, which would mean a variation application, and officially a bar could be utilised downstairs, the appropriation of alcohol could still take place in that downstairs area.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you for that. That does clarify. Right. And now I'll invite the applicant to present their case. Can the applicant introduce themselves and present their application, please?
Okay, this is Belinda Griffiths, and I'd like to start by saying thank you for taking the time today to consider my application. I am the owner of the apartment 19A, the shop Wild Blue World and the garden, and I live above the property and have done for the last 4 years. Following both the floods and COVID lockdown last winter, like many business owners, I was extremely concerned at how I was going to keep my shop going with so few customers walking through the door. For this reason, and this reason only, I have turned my beautiful garden that I have created from a derelict piece of land into an alfresco dining bar experience as an extension of my shop, operating last season on a TENS licence. The Blue Bar became an overnight success and was frequented by locals, tourists to our beautiful town. Because of this success, my application is now to obtain a full licence to operate from the hours that have previously been stated by Ross. I just feel I need to say this, it is relevant. I've been a successful businesswoman for over 33 years, and having created Wonderland in Telford Town Park, and have successfully managed my business Jungleland Soft Play Centre in Telford for over 10 years, which has in excess of 100,000 visitors per year. And I have daily practice of food hygiene, health and safety, risk assessment and child protection. I will be using all this knowledge that I have gained over these years to operate and manage the Blue Bar. I fully understand the licence objectives, and I have and I will adhere to them, having already proven this over the last summer season. Firstly, crime and disorder. I will operate a zero tolerance to drugs. My team will have ongoing staff training, and the training will be given by my manager here, Debs. I will operate my business under the supervision of a manager, myself or Debs at all time. Public safety. Following an in-depth meeting with the Chief Fire Officer, I have replaced at great expense the spiral staircase and the railings at the top of the garden to satisfy the requirements of both fire and building regulations. I have installed a motion sensor light above the staircase that obviously will go on when needed to assist people up and down the staircase. I have a full fire risk assessment in place with ongoing training for all part-time and full-time employees. I have installed the appropriate fire extinguishers and fire and exit signs and have the full backing of the fire department, and will go an ongoing, they will premises each year inspection. Prevention of public nuisance, which I think is really important, and the objections fundamentally what this hearing is about. I will be operating the Blue Bar with an online and in-store booking system. Entrance and exit to the bar is via my shop. So customers will come into the shop, they will have to make known who they are, and then they will be taken to a table. There will be no waiting areas, and service will be as last year, which is table service only. The pricing structure is medium to high, so I am not offering cheap alcohol. I am not offering early bird offers or any discount alcohol incentives whatsoever. One of the issues is, all the bills, customers' bills will be paid for on exiting the premises in the shop, where I will have a trained and responsible member of staff. They will be reminding guests, as I did last year, to please be respectful of the neighbours when leaving the premises. Table sittings will be staggered to avoid congestion and people leaving at the end of the evening, as I did last season. As last year, my clientele was, if you can describe everybody, middle-aged couples, families. I did not encourage, and I'm not attracting young teenagers, youths, groups of people. It is not a disco, it is not a sports bar. The alfresco dining experience will operate with a limited menu. The pizza oven has been replaced, which last year it was actually only a non-commercial pizza oven. Anybody could have one in their garden. The officer came out and said there was no smoke, there was no issue, but at his request, I have stopped using, and I will stop using, the pizza oven, and it's my intention to replace this with a griddle. I will only be cooking 3 things: mini chicken skewers, mini lamb skewers, and mini vegetable skewers. This will be served with warm pita bread and salads, served on simple wooden platters. So I have alleviated, there will be no smoke, no fumes, no steam. There is therefore, which was one of the concerns, there is no plating up. There's no large clutter of china and plating up and tins from a kitchen. There are no blenders, there's no kitchen equipment, there's no pots, there's no pans. And this has been a noted objection, and I want that really stressed, that how people are interpreting the kitchen, it is not. It is a simple salad, a pita bread and a skewer, and a cheese platter and a meat platter. Bottles will be disposed of throughout service using specific section crates, and they will be emptied into a bottle bin at the end of the night as courtesy of, because I work with him, a friend and a colleague, Russ from the Nag's Head. Next door, because I have not got the facilities to have bottle banks in my premises. He is happy that my bottle banks from a private company will be stored outside his premises. So that's moving any noise that was a concern for residents hearing bottles being disposed of at the end of the night. I would like to use the fire pit for demonstration purposes only, as they are fundamentally a part of my business, and I sell numerous numbers of these items. If used correctly, I will use them correctly on non-windy days located at the top of the garden with use of dry logs. They are sold worldwide, made in India and distributed from a very successful company in Shropshire. They are not commercial fire pits. They are just normal everyday fire pit that are sold worldwide. There is no point in using a fire pit on a windy day because it will create smoke.
Unfortunately, Mr. Griffiths, you've actually frozen now. I think there's obviously an issue to do with internet connection. Can everybody else hear me?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, right. Belinda, can you hear me? Louise, is somebody able to contact Mrs. Griffiths by phone just to see what's happening?
Yeah, Tim, do you have somebody that's available to contact her, please?
Okay.
Oh,
Right,
she's
sorry.
back.
Right, I'm back.
Sorry.
Don't know what happened then. I would like at this point to note that Mr. Higgins' house is over 30 metres from the so-called working kitchen and where the fire pit would be, and Mr. Lloyd's property is over 40 metres away.
Right, you've frozen again. This is the trouble with technology.
Chair, can I just register a comment that it's very unfortunate that the crucial discussion of the fire pits has been interrupted in this way, and that we could, when we do resume, if we could cover this area again, because it's obviously critical to the public nuisance aspect of the licence.
Yeah, certainly with regards to the fire pit, you'll have your chance to actually be able to ask questions of the applicant, and you'll be able to specifically ask about that if you want to clarify further details of that. I think I've got an issue here now with the internet connection with the applicant. She keeps cutting in and out. I think if this is going to happen, we're probably going to have to adjourn this committee, because obviously it's crucial that the applicant is included, you know, for questioning and to be able to ask questions. Louise, can I take your advice on that?
So it looks like Mrs. Griffiths has just logged off, so hopefully if she is able to log back on again, that might resolve some of the issues.
But I will say now, I think if she does log back on and we have this issue again, it's just making it very, very difficult to actually carry on the subcommittee. So I will be asking the other committee members whether or not they agree with me that we adjourn.
It may be, Chair, that Mrs. Griffiths can join by telephone rather than via video.
Yeah, no, that's true. Tim, have you been able to contact Miss Griffiths?
I don't actually have a phone number for her. I'm just trying to get one.
Right. If I can ask the other two committee members, how do they feel about this now? Roy?
Yes, Councillor Allcroft. Yeah, I think if we can't make decent contact, maintain it, then we should adjourn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Keith Roberts, Chair, I agree with what's just been said by my colleague.
Yeah, thank you. Tim and Louise, how long should we leave it before I actually adjourn this meeting?
I'm just trying to phone Mrs. Griffiths now.
Right.
I think we need to try and get her back in the meeting, even if it's just by telephone to start with, before we consider adjourning, Chair.
Chair, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Will the time lost in the scheduled time allotted for the meeting be made up at the end of this meeting?
Yeah, certainly. If we do resume, if the meeting resumes, it will carry on until we've actually heard the full case. Yeah, okay. We don't sort of cut off, run out of time. They don't sort of close us down before we finish. We will carry on until we have actually come to, that we're happy that we can make our decisions.
Thank you.
Louise?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. If we do adjourn, I'm assuming that because of the change in the about having virtual meetings, this would, if we adjourn and it is reconvened after the election, it will be face-to-face live meeting, won't it? It won't be a virtual meeting.
I believe so. Yes, we'll be back in the Shire Hall.
Yeah. So then at least there won't be,
makes life a bit easier.
Chance of falling out of losing signals. Yeah.
Chair, I'm afraid that the number I have is just going straight to voicemail, I'm afraid.
Right. Well, I think we've it's been well over 5 minutes.
Can I, Chair, sorry, can I just check, Ross, do you have any alternative contact details for Miss Griffiths?
I'll just have another look and I'll let
or Mr. Jameson, if you're able to contact her at all.
I've just tried and I can't get anything. No.
Okay.
I think we're going to have to make the decision that we're going to have to adjourn this meeting and reconvene as a face-to-face meeting following the election.
Yes, being Councillor Allcroft, I'm concerned about the lack of continuity with what we're doing. A break like this is not helpful for both sides, and I feel that we ought to knock it on the head now and take it to a face-to-face meeting after we've done the elections. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Keith?
Yeah, I agree, Chair.
Right.
Has there been any other contact with her since she went offline?
Sorry?
Has anybody been able to make contact with her? I just want to double check before we adjourn them.
I've tried them both on their phones and I can't get hold of them.
Oh, I've got her here. She's waiting. She's come back in.
Lobby, yeah.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Belinda.
You're on mute, Mrs. Griffith. Ms. Griffiths.
Unmute. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, we can.
Can anyone hear me? I am sorry, the router, the chances of that happening, the router went down. I keep it brief, can I continue?
Yeah, we were just discussing if this happens again, if you sort of go offline again, I think we're going to have to re-adjourn.
Okay, so it actually did go down, so
pandemonium.
Right, because I've nearly come to the end anyway, so if I can just go back to on light pollution. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will only be operating during the summer season, during the duration of daylight will be at the peak, only using 6 meters of festoon lights to create ambience. I will be using warm 40-watt bulbs. There will be spotlights under the bar and the kitchen, but this is directed down at the staff that are working there. So it's to assist them when they're cleaning at the end of the night, not into the garden. I was awarded a food hygiene 5-star last year. This will be maintained. I live at the property, so I have no intention of encouraging mice, rats, vermin throughout bad practice. Like all kitchens, indoor or out, they will be cleaned accordingly to opening and closing procedures at the end of the service. Waste disposal will be in closed bins and collected by a commercial waste company. A pest control contract has been in place because it's my home and garden for over 4 years and will remain so. All staff will be trained in the opening and closing procedures, and food handlers will be trained in food hygiene. Finally, protection of children. Staff awareness staff will be made aware and trained on policies and recorded. Challenge 25 will be in place at all times. Under 18s will have to be accompanied by an adult, and a manager will always be in place throughout the operation whilst I'm trading. I would like to conclude, I was continually praised at the running of the bar last year and fully booked, not one single incident or breaking of licensing objectives, and I am confident that this will remain so. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about the interruption.
That's now completed your case.
Yes.
Right, so you'll now have an opportunity to ask any relevant questions of the applicant. Please indicate on the chat function. Does everybody know how to work the chat function?
No, we don't.
No, I think just by indicating, requesting that you want to speak is going to be the best way of doing this. Please remember that when asked to speak, you should unmute microphones, state your name, remute on completion. The order that I will take the questions is first licensing officer. Ross, do you have any questions at all of the applicant?
No questions at this minute, Chair, thank you.
Right. Responsible authorities, there are none. Other persons, other persons present. if you could indicate if you wish to ask a question of the applicant. Yeah, Mr. Higgins.
Yeah, I'd like the applicant to just reiterate the points about the fire pits, because I think it's significant in relation to smoke and odour pollution. What exactly is being proposed with the fire pits, please?
Right. Okay, so if the weather is dry and it is not windy, I would like to use the fire pit for demonstration purposes only, because I sell them in the shop. I will not be cooking on the fire pits.
So that means that the fire pits could be regularly lit, and they emit a significant amount of smoke. So every dry day that there could be smoke arising from the area, in addition to the cooking.
Right. If I could just say now, because of your objection with the fire pits, I have been lighting the fire pit on a daily basis. It was too late to give this evidence, but I can forward the evidence, and I have photographs, and I have lit one every night last week, in the last 10 days, and at not one point have yourself or Mr. Lloyd noted, because there is no issue. And you can come round and I will light the fire pit every single day. If they are misused and they are people put wet logs on them, they will smoke. But there was not an issue. I feel it is something that you are using to become an issue, which is why I have lit them. I have got I've got photographic evidence that there is not smoke if they are used correctly. And I do not use charcoal on them. It is just dry wood.
Can I just make an objection that an allegation has been made that I'm simply using fire pits as an obstructive element? This is clearly not the case. I live above the fire pits. The fire pits are regularly lit because I am not objecting to them being lit, because it's a routine thing. Just because you've lit them in the past 10 days, it doesn't mean to say that I haven't noticed the smell, I haven't noticed how it's come into my apartment, because I've been going through the formal procedure. That's the reason why I have not lodged objections. It's not because there isn't an issue, it's because I have simply gone through the formal processes.
I'd like to reiterate again, it's Belinda, that the fire pit is 35 metres from your house. It is just not humanly possible. It is not possible for the smoke to come from, that there is no smoke, there's not possible for the smoke that you are claiming that is there to go 35 metres. It is just
Can I just interrupt here now as chair? I think this questioning is it's not helping. Now you've made, Mr. Higgins, you made your point with regards to the fire pit. Ms. Griffiths has responded to that. The committee members will take into account the comments. We've seen your concerns on your representations about that, so we need to move on from that question now.
Hi, it's James Lloyd. Could I ask a question? I'm a neighbour.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Miss Griffiths has made a point that both our properties are 30 and 40 metres away from the garden, respectively. I think that's not particularly the point. The point is that our gardens, where we both entertain and have our own guests, are adjacent to Mrs. Griffiths' garden, and it's not particularly the. I don't expect smoke to be bellowing into my house. It's more the use and enjoyment of our gardens during the summer months, when the weather is warmer and we want to enjoy our gardens. That's the issue at hand, I think.
Belinda, if I could speak. The environmental health officer came out and has seen the fire pit and has not got an issue. and your garden, the area next to my garden, is actually your car park. So it's your compost bin and your car park. Your parking is adjacent to the. I couldn't even take a photograph because your property is so far away. You can't actually see your property from my house, and it is your car parking that is adjacent to my house, to my property.
Okay, I think that question's been asked and answered there.
Can I make a point, Chair? The point about distance is not a significant point. The point is the geography of the location. We live above the fire pits. We live directly in the line of smoke which rises. So we get any fire outcome coming into our atmosphere, which we have to breathe in. And we know that the fire pit, the idea that a fire does not emit smoke defies physics. So,
Mr. Higgins, sorry, is the legal advisor here? Can I just interrupt? Do you have a question to put to Ms. Griffiths, or is this part of your submission?
Well, I have a question. How is it then that fire pits cannot provide smoke which rises into the adjacent properties because of the location and the particular geography? How is it that the fire emits no smoke at all?
Right, you say fire pits. It is singular, one fire pit, not fire pits. Again, the location of where I'm putting the fire pit is not beneath your property, and they do not. There's no more smoke than smoke from a toaster. I would argue that there is not. It is such a small fire. Once the flames are going, there is not. It does not emit the smoke that you were saying that is harmful to you. It just doesn't. Yeah, go on. Deb wants to say something.
Sorry, yeah, Deborah Greeno. Can I also just reiterate that the pollution officer has visited and has said that it is not an issue. It is not a smoke nuisance or odour, so it's irrelevant, really.
So why are we still saying that?
I think that question, as I say, Mr. Higgins, you put the question, it's been answered. If we can move on. Yep. So the other persons have asked their questions. Ms. Griffiths has responded to them. We'll now go to committee members. Councillor Allcroft, do you have any questions at all of the applicant?
No, basically. It's been a good presentation. I think we've covered all the bases with what's been included in the reports and what Ms. Griffiths has given us. So okay. I've no further questions.
Thank you, Roy. Keith, do you have any questions?
Can I just ask Ms. Griffiths regarding the removal of bottles, etc.? You've mentioned that you've got an agreement with the landlord of the Nag's Head, which is great. But you are aware that you're not allowed to move anything between 2300 hours and 0700 hours in the morning, and you're happy with that? You fully, yeah.
Yes,
Sorry, did you get? You're going to comply with that? You're not going to move anything between 100 hours and 0700 hours?
No.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not getting you very well.
No.
Okay.
Just reiterate.
No.
I just like to read.
Sorry, I'm not going to.
Cool. I would just like to reiterate. No, I will be working within those guidelines.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Got you that time. Thank you for your reply.
Okay. I've just got a couple of questions to ask you, Ms. Griffiths. Excuse me. With regards to the fire pit, you say you use that you would be using it for demonstration purposes only. I'm assuming then that because the top terrace is not included in the application for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that you won't be using the fire pit on those days?
No, not at all. No.
Not at all.
No, because you have somebody with a fire pit, so no, I would not be using it. No, outside of the times when I've got people in the garden. No.
Right.
Unless it's for my personal use of an evening, you know, if I'm deciding to use the garden for my own personal use, which I'm quite entitled to do.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's obviously, yeah. The question of the fire pit came up. I got a note here that I was going to ask you with regards to it, because you'll be using the top terrace during the evenings. Do you have any other sort of form of heating at all that you'll be applying? Is your intention to use any other form of heating up on the top terrace?
No, none whatsoever. One, mainly for cost reasons, it's too expensive. So people came last year, they used blankets. They no, not at all. I have no intention to start using like gas heaters or anything at all. No.
Right. Now, the other question I've got is with regards to the working kitchen. If the courtyard is closed, the upper terrace is closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, isn't included in the license. On those 3 days, the courtyard garden is open. Does this mean you will not be serving any hot foods at all during the...
No hot food. So it will be for teas, coffees, salad, pita breads, no hot food. Cakes. And cakes.
Right. And do you intend using the bar in the courtyard on those 3 days?
No, because in my stock room, I have a storeroom, which is on the same level as the courtyard, which is where the alcohol will be stored, and I will be able to serve alcohol between 12 and 4, but it won't be up in the bar, it'll be just down in the courtyard. Again, it's a manning situation, so no, just down in the courtyard. And when those tables are full, they're full, and that'll be 20 people.
Yeah, so for clarification then, the terrace, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, in your application as it is now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the top terrace would not be used at all for your commercial purposes, and the bar won't be used, the working kitchen won't be used, so there'll be no activity, commercial activity going on the terrace on those 3 days.
No commercial activity. Maybe my own personal use.
Yeah, that's why I say commercial activity. I mean, obviously it's your garden, you can use it, you can do, you know, what you can do in your garden anyway. Right, I think those are all the questions I wanted to ask. Now, I just want to double check again with the committee members. Do you have any questions at all you wanted to ask? Any further questions?
Councillor Allcroft, no further questions.
Councillor Roberts?
Councillor Keith Roberts, no thank you, Chair, I'm fine.
That's great, right, thank you very much. Okay, we then move on. Responsible authorities present their case. There are no responsible authorities present, so we can then move on to other persons who've made representations present their case. Any other person who's made a representation to the application will be given an opportunity to outline their case. Presentations will take place in the following order. First, James Lloyd, if you'd like to present your case.
Could you ask Paul to go through his case first, because I just need to pull mine up.
Because what, sorry?
Could you ask Paul if he would like to go through his case first? I just need to pull up my my document that had my case in it.
Okay. Okay then. So Paul.
Thank you. I first want to point out that I'm not trying to be obstructive for the sake of it, as has been led. I genuinely have serious concerns, certainly on the prevention of harm to children. Bar restaurant involves an outdoor kitchen. We've talked about the effects of smoke, and I believe they've been minimized, but the health effects of smoke are particularly damaging for children, and children live in this area. It's a residential area. They live above this area, so it would be particularly harmful for them. So the harmful effects of children are exacerbated by the particular geography of the site. They're above the site, they're playing, they will be inhaling the smoke. It's not sufficient simply to report conversations with Environmental Health Public Protection Officer. It's to look at what he actually stated. And initially, he did object. He made an objection to the license on the basis of noise, smoke, and odour. And at the 11th hour, that objection was withdrawn. And the other aspects about children, we've heard about training, but on safeguarding, it's particularly important. And this raises the issue of the license itself and the character of the license. The Shropshire Council's own guidance states from April 2019 that a license should be rigorous and enforceable. This license application is neither of those. It's vague, and particularly on children. It simply states, we will not encourage children. And we've heard that phrase reiterated. There are not specific strategies for an age limit on entry to the bar when children may be present, nor on the presence of children under a certain age for specific activities. No restrictions, no detail on that is given. It's contradictory. We've been told it's for 365 days a year, and now it's for 6 months, and we're relying on intentions. A license application of this sort cannot be valid or rigorous or enforceable. And on the key point of noise, smoke, and pollution, the Public Protection Officer withdrew his objection on the basis of the building. One of the key points he made was that the kitchen area was what he called a barbecue, which diminishes the size and scale of that building. And so that became a critical point. So the points that have been made earlier about planning not being related to the license is not, in my view, valid. The planning issue is directly relevant to the licensing issue because it relies on the mitigation of noise, smoke and odour, relies on a building that has been constructed without planning permission, without listed building consent. And for those reasons, that comment is invalid. The status of those buildings, which have been erected without proper procedure, without proper planning permission, need to be clarified before the points about mitigation can be made. So I don't accept, I don't accept that the point about noise, smoke and odour being mitigated by illegal or inappropriate or unapproved buildings. That the kitchen is not a barbecue. It has been erected against a listed town structure. And what Mrs. Griffiths may not have known was that, in fact, the site was surveyed in detail with extensive photographic and documentary evidence and descriptions, and a brick by brick analysis was made of the wall because the town walls are listed and they are so important.
Mr. Higgins, I'm sorry I'm cutting across you, Mr. Higgins, but you're talking on planning issues now, and as I've already explained and the legal advisor has explained, we are not here to make any consideration on planning issues at all. Your objections with regards to, your comments with regards to this being specifically planning issues, that will be dealt with by the planning committee, not by the licensing app subcommittee. They're two completely different committees, and we have no, the fact that we may issue a license does not affect the fact that planning has to be, they have to apply for the correct planning and carry out, the requirements of the planning committee of planning permission. So we cannot take into account comments with regards to planning as far as the Licensing Act Committee is concerned. It has no effect on what we're discussing today. I can understand your frustration in that, but as I say, they're two completely different committees, regulatory committees, and we have no input at all onto the planning issues.
I accept that. The only point I'm making is that the withdrawal of the environmental health officer's objection was made on the basis of a building whose status has not been granted. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. Your point has been well made.
And in relation to that, all I'm saying is that a number of false statements have been made in the planning document, and it says at the end of the license application form itself that it is an offence under the Licensing Act 2003 to make any statements in the application or in connection with it. And I maintain that the comments made about the building development in a related document are demonstrably false, and therefore this license application and the related planning application should be halted until an investigation is made into the documentary and photographic evidence that's been provided to investigate this matter.
Thank you. We shall now ask the licensing officer, do you have any questions at all of Mr. Higgins' statement?
No questions, Chair.
No questions, right. Responsible authorities, there are none. Applicant, Ms. Griffiths, do you have any questions you want to make to Mr. Higgins' statement?
I just wonder if I could ask Ian Jameson, my planning consultant, to make to reply to Mr. Higgins, if that's okay, to his points raised.
It's questions, really.
But then, no. No. Questions.
Okay. No. And committee members. Roy.
Councillor Allcroft, no comment, no questions.
No questions, right. Keith, Councillor Roberts.
Councillor Keith Roberts, no questions from me either.
Right, okay. And I don't have any further questions on your representations made. So we'll now move to James. James Lloyd, you've got your paperwork ready now?
I do, yeah.
Right, okay, James, if you'd like to present your representations.
So I made some written representations, and I think they were quite detailed. They went into the 4 sections which were allowable comments, those being prevention to harm to children, prevention public nuisance, prevention crime and disorder, and public safety, and I've made comments on all of those. I think what I'd like to talk more about is the holistic nature of the application, and how that feels as a resident, being next to what is effectively a venue which is going to be akin to someone having an outdoor barbecue in their garden next to your garden for 6 months of the year, 4 days a week, playing live music, cooking for 50 people, and effectively having a party in the garden for half the year. When she says that my adjacent garage is not part of my garden, we have a terrace on top of the garden, on top of the garage, and that is very proximate to her residence. And I just think, you know, I think the time the length of time that the applicant is allowed to open is too long, and I think the size or the number of people that she is allowed to have just is will be loud and disruptive for her neighbours. I think the idea that you can play live music or loud music in the garden for those number of days next to residential gardens will be incredibly disruptive. You know, the idea that we can sit outside and hear the songbirds, and all of our gardens are flush with wildlife. The idea that you can have 6 months of the year live music or loud music being played outside and have 50 people in the garden and it won't be disruptive to the neighbours, I think is not true. You know, this will be incredibly disruptive to us, not just from the perspective, it's all of the elements coming together. You know, smoke is part of it, but loud music is part of it, and having 50 people, you can't keep 50 people quiet. They're going to chat at the Nag's Head below also has a large garden, and when you aggregate the two together, the cacophony becomes unbearable to the extent that you just can't sit outside anymore. And I think, you know, you just have to imagine yourself sitting in your own private garden and imagining someone with a 50-person barbecue 4 days a week, 6 months a year, playing music and having a great time. And I just don't think it's appropriate to have that in the quiet residential setting that it is. I'm sure you've, or I hope you've read my detailed submission, which goes into the detail of some of the points. But I think this is more a matter of trying to imagine yourself in the same scenario that we will find ourselves. And that's the end of my submission, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Right, licensing officer, Ross, do you have any questions at all for Mr. Lloyd?
Just a quick question, please, to James. James, can you obviously you've mentioned about the size and the times, and that you have put in your representations a different time scale. Can you speak about that and what you'd like to see on the licence from your perspective? Is it still as your representation, or has it changed since the environmental health officer's withdrawn his reps?
I can't remember what I've got in the representation. What timings have I got in there?
I can probably help there. Sunday 9 till 3, Monday 10 till 3, Tuesday 10 till 3 p.m. Sorry, yeah. Wednesday 10 till 3, Thursday 10 till 3, Friday 10 till 3, Saturday 9 till 3.
Yeah, I think those are appropriate.
Just to clarify, James, you have the times you've got in your representation, you believe are the ones the committee should still consider.
Sorry, say again.
Sorry.
Just to clarify, the times you've got in your representations, you'd still like those to be the committee considers acceptable, yeah?
Yeah, or it's mitigation of timings, I think. And also quantity of people.
Could I ask a question of James?
Can I finish, Chair?
No, not yet. You can't.
All right.
I've got no further questions to ask, Chair, if you want to go back to the procedure.
Right, thank you. Responsible authorities, there are none. Applicant. Sorry, Ms. Griffiths, do you have any questions of Mr. Lloyd?
I don't think I'm not sure it was a question, but he's saying live music. I have no intention of playing live music. So it needs to be having live music. So that needs to be clarified. If
I can just explain, because of the hours applied for, because it finishes the hours you're applying for up to, cease at 11. Music, live music, recorded music before 11 is not a licensable activity, so we would have no no control over music played before 11 o'clock. I think I'm right in saying that, aren't I, Louise?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Yeah, it would not be part of the licensing, the license anyway, with regards to music prior to 11 o'clock at night.
I'd also like Deb, if you want.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to mention that, obviously because you talk about it being a residential area, it is sort of a 50-50. It's residential, but it's also the middle of the town centre, so there is going to be noise. There is going to be, I know you're talking about there being us potentially adding to the Nag's Head, but I feel that we're already in a town centre location, so there's going to be an expectation of noise already.
At the front of your property as well, because there's already
on the main road.
Cromwell's. You're on the main road. You've got Cromwell's. You've got Darwin's Kitchen. You've got the coffee shop. You've got
sorry, we're straying away from questions. It's a question of Mr. Lloyd on his statement.
Can you just specify the question, please?
It was no question. It's just the fact that points you were making.
It wasn't a question, right? Okay. That's fine, thank you. Now, normally we would go to the committee members now, but I just want to check something with Louise now with regards to procedure. Do other persons have the right to ask questions?
It's not usual practice, Chair, because they're not. Normally they're on the same side. So I don't know what the nature of Mr. Higgins' question of Mr. Lloyd would be. It's a massive few if you want to allow him to ask the question or not.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, okay, Mr. Higgins, I'll let you ask your question of Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. James, how would you feel about the kitchen being situated inside the shop? Would that affect? How would you feel about that if that were a proposal?
It would be mitigating, so there would be less noise, and there would be less smell, and there would be less chance of vermin. And I'm already plagued by vermin from the Nag's Head. So if the cooking premises was inside the venue or inside the property, that would certainly mitigate a number of factors.
Right. Thank you. Committee. Roy Allcroft, do you have any questions of Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, I'm just interested in that last statement, actually. As one of the things that was brought up was vermin, and the fact that this business would increase the vermin, according to the statements you made. You say you've had a long-term problem with vermin, so can you confirm that the vermin problem is one that is there already anyway, which is why probably Miss Griffiths has a contract to clear the little biters out?
Yeah, so I can comment on that. So there's the Nag's Head, which is on the bottom terrace of our garden, has a number of rats. I think he's told me there's sort of 6 or 7 rats that he's had, and he's made efforts at the beginning of this year to kill said rats. I've had I think he's put down rat poison, and I found a squirrel in my compost heap as a result of the poison. And I included a copy of that rat. The rat, I haven't had any rats to the top half of my garden, the ones which border. It's difficult to describe exactly how, but the garden's quite a long garden. It's away from the town walls. My garden goes down on 3 terraces, and then at the top of the town walls, the garden goes from the town walls to the house. So there are no to the top half of the garden. I haven't had any vermin at all. The only vermin I've had right at the bottom of the terrace towards where the Nag's Head is.
Right, so
nothing over the town walls.
Does that confirm then that you had a pre-existing rat problem prior to this application going in, and that the applicant has already taken steps prior to this application to resolve that problem? So you had a pre-existing problem. So it's not just this application that's going to be a vermin increaser. It's already there. That's all I'm saying. Is you're trying to.
I would concede there are vermin.
To imply that this business is going to cause a vermin problem, but that vermin problem already exists, according to you.
Okay, so the vermin problem currently, if I was to say where the vermin problem existed in the garden, and I'd say that the garden's probably 3/4 of an acre in size.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a wide garden. You know, the bottom terrace of my garden is further away from. It's on the other side of Belinda's terrace, and that's the part of the garden that borders the Nag's Head. So the vermin problem currently is in isolation. I haven't noticed or experienced any vermin other than in very close proximity to the Nag's Head. There's a particular wall that borders my garden and the garden of the Nag's Head, and the rat in question comes over that wall quite regularly and then pops back over the wall back into the Nag's Head. So it's a very geographically particular issue. I haven't experienced. I've seen the rat on the middle terrace once, but I've never experienced a rat on the top terrace, and I've never experienced the rat further up towards on the other side of the town walls.
Thank you for that, Mr. Lloyd. Can you also tell me this business was operating last year? Mm-hmm. There isn't any significant statement within yours about any complaints last year.
No, I didn't make any complaints last year.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
No questions, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And I've got no further questions, Mr. Lloyd. So we'll now move on to Lilaj Brown. I have your name down here as a representation
in support of my comments.
In support, yeah. So do you have any statement you want to make? You're on mute. If you'd like to just unmute your microphone.
Unmuted. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, sorry, Lalaji Bowen, B-O-W-N's my name. What I really want, in support of what my colleagues have said, I would like to say I did make a submission. I'm afraid it was late, and that's my fault, but it's also the fact that I happened to have a particular health problem and I was a bit ill. I had to go to hospital. Mr. Higgins took me there, and when I came back, I was a bit out of kilter for several days. And that goes back to one of the things that I think we should be concerned with. And I just wanted to make a couple of bits of information that it is not true to say that we are all those meters away, that our gardens are just the thickness of a wall between our gardens and the garden of Mrs. Griffiths, the applicant's area. So I think we can't imagine that there's all that distance. There isn't any distance. That's the first point. Secondly, I think it's misleading to suggest that we're close to places like Cromwell's. We're not close to places like Cromwell's. They're the other side of the road, which is partly a commercial side of the road. Our side of the road, from Dogpole down to as far as down to the Nag's Head, up to there, is all residential property. And it's not just 2 or 3 of us. It includes the old house. It includes the former Guild Hall. It includes Cardington House. It includes some very historic buildings as well. So I think we must make it clear this is not a noisy part of the town. I do admire Mrs. Griffiths enormously for the effort she's taken to save her shop business, but I don't quite see why she couldn't go to the area where there is noise and where there are restaurants and places. However, but I just wanted to make the point that I am concerned myself, obviously, because my health is poor and noise and such things are not very helpful. But also the more important thing is not just me, it's not just Mr. Lloyd, it's not just Mr. Higgins, it's a whole area of residential property. Secondly, that as they adjoin to the garden, Mrs. Griffiths's garden, that therefore some of the things that have been said have to be put into that have to be put into contention, that the area where she has her garden is actually so close by, and it is down a slope. So even if there's only a mini wisp of smoke, that smoke comes up. There wasn't much smoke last week because she couldn't have it on all the time because we had such howling winds and snow and things, it wasn't possible. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to make those points. I apologize that my own objection was late. That was my reason. Secondly, that I think we have to be clear that some of the things we've been told are liable to misinterpretation. And I wanted to make it plain that this is a residential area. It's the area of which that garden is a part is behind the COP, and it is not in a noisy area.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Brown. Right. So the licensing officer, do you have any questions at all of Ms. Brown?
Bound, please.
Oh, Bound. Sorry, I do beg your pardon. I do apologise.
Sorry.
I don't Bound, want to not Brown. I do beg your pardon. Sorry. Ross, do you have any questions at all?
No questions, thank you.
No. Responsible authorities, there are none. Applicant, do you have any questions at all of Ms. Bown?
No comments, no.
Right, thank you. Right, then down to the committee. Roy.
Yeah, Councillor Croft, no comment.
Lovely. Keith.
Councillor Keith Roberts, no questions. Thank you.
No, and I've thank you, for your representations, but I've got no question either. So now move on to closing remarks from each party. Each party is now permitted a brief opportunity to make any closing remarks. This should not be a repeat of the case already made or discussions during the questions, but may have some points to clarify or additional comments as a result of the questions and discussions. If you have nothing further to say, you do not have to speak. So I will invite for closing remarks, initially the licensing officer, Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to re-emphasise what the procedure for today and why we're here, particularly the 3 committee members. So you're here to consider and determine the application, and to do this you must give appropriate weight to the promotion of the 4 licensed objectives, any representations and support information, the 182 guidance, the Licensing Act 2003, and Shropshire Council's licensing policy 19 to 24. You may grant the application in full or in part, subject to such conditions deemed necessary and appropriate to the 4 licensed objectives, or refuse if deemed appropriate for the 4 licensing objectives. And again, you need to justify it with support and evidence of your justification. All parties will receive the decision notice, and all parties can appeal within 21 days to the court. Planning's been mentioned a lot of times today. The applicant has put planning application with a licensing application, and we're focusing on the 4 licensed objectives only. If the license was to be granted, that doesn't necessarily mean that planning permission would be. And if the applicant does get a license and she doesn't get planning permission, then obviously the use of it would not be permitted under planning development laws. That's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Responsible authorities, there are none here. Other persons, so I'll go in the original order again. Mr. Lloyd, do you have any final closing remarks?
Yeah, I'd just like to make one point. I noticed the response about recorded music, and that the licensing authority or your committee have, once the license is granted, they have no ability to restrict or limit the amount of music that's played before 11 o'clock. And with that being said, the loud recorded music is or can be a public nuisance. And what you're effectively saying is that you have, while you have the ability to grant a license, you have no ability to, once the license is granted, to mitigate or control the playing of recorded music. And therefore the only mitigation that you're able to, mitigating controls that you're able to apply to limit the recorded music is to limit the hours of operation. And I'd like you to take that into consideration, that if you had recorded music being played late at night until 11 o'clock, it would certainly cause a public nuisance. And to use the other, and I'd encourage you to use the other means at your disposal to mitigate that public nuisance by limiting the hours of operation.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Thank you. I just want to underline from Ms. Bound's comments, first of all, that she has COPD, so she has breathing difficulties and is under a consultant. So any pollution that rises into her property could have very grave consequences for her. I think the point I've made about the kitchen and the question I've raised is that all of this perhaps could have been avoided if, as with all the other restaurants in the town of Shrewsbury, the kitchen was responsibly situated inside and the food prepared inside. Then all of this discussion about noise, smoke and odour would have been unnecessary. And I think that one of the perhaps positive things that could be done, a positive gesture, would be to site the kitchen inside, have the food prepared in a modest kitchen, because the shop has ample space. And if that were the case, I'm sure there'd be a lot more positive reaction to an enterprise such as this. But to place it outside causes all of these difficulties that we've mentioned, and certainly to build a kitchen right next to town walls that are listed has caused significant problems. And that is my genuine reason for the opposition. It is not to be obstructive, it is not to try and prevent business, but it's to make sure that we can protect what is a haven for this community. It's quiet, the bird life, as that James mentioned. We want to keep that environment and maintain it for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bone, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, thank you very much for asking me. I feel that's very kind of you, given that I didn't have my application, my objection in time. I think really that my colleagues have said the important things. I think perhaps the one point that could be made is that we're not enemies of Belinda, Mrs. Griffiths, because she has to earn a living. I just do wonder if, when her shop is successful, she will then abandon the restaurant idea, or whether now she's going to become a restaurateur and the shop will really be just an appendage, because her shop is a very nice shop. And I would have thought once lockdown is over, she won't really need to have the restaurant because she'll have hordes of people coming into the shop. And by the way, it was, of course, mainly for the shop that she got this prize and all these good comments, because the temporary restaurant was only open, if I remember altogether, for about 28 days. That wasn't a very long time, and it was in 2 sort of bites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bone. Right, applicant, you've got a final statement, closing remarks.
Yeah, just 2 comments to, I'd like to say to Mr. Lloyd about music. I want to be able to have my customers to be able to talk to each other. So I don't want loud music playing. And if that means that I have to have a company out and we do like a decibel, an actual acceptable volume level of music, and that will be attached to my sound system, that the music will not go above that. But I think your interpretation of what I want to do with, with background, it is just purely background music, and it's ambience, and it's about people being able to talk. And then secondly, Mr. Higgins, your interpretation of a kitchen, which I have stressed, is, a pita bread, a salad. It is not a full kitchen. It is not, there is no way on earth that you can think that it could actually put a kitchen in the shop. It's just, it's ridiculous. And this is based on, what has happened with COVID. Our lives are now going to change, and probably change forever, with restaurants, where people more and more outdoor dining. It's what's been actively encouraged in central government, because people post-COVID feeling safe. So there will become more and more places like, the river, the boathouse. It's becoming it's becoming a new way of eating and dining moving forward. And finally, I would like to say thank you for attending this hearing today and listening to my response and my application. I would like to stress I am a resident myself. I would like to work with neighbours. I've never fallen out with neighbours, and it's not a nice feeling, and it's not something I want to work with you. You've all seen many comments of support from my applications that includes Tanners, the Bid, the Sheriff of Shrewsbury, the Nag's Head, the House of Grain, Darwin's Kitchen, and many of the establishments in the Wild Cop businesses. Following this meeting, I would ask you to look at the Shropshire Council planning portal to see the overwhelming support. And as of this morning, I have got over 32 comments, really lovely supportive comments, saying what a wonderful addition to our town. People are able to sit in the garden, look at the views, look at the the historic walls. What I have done, create something different that is bringing in both tourists, which this town desperately needs, and is frequented by so many businesses. I'm very proud of what I've achieved. I feel I have a huge contribution to the independence of the Wild Cop. I'm bringing employment that the country, Shropshire, Shrewsbury, we need employment to the community. I would ask residents to look at the view that is absolutely paramount to keep our beautiful, beautiful historic town thriving. And we need shops, we need bars, we need restaurants. If we need to continually resist, we need to move forward and look forward instead of trying to resist change before our town becomes a town of empty shops and buildings. And I'm sure you would love to live in a town that is prospering and a place which will keep the value of all of our properties. And I just think I would appreciate a different way of looking at this. But thank you everyone today for your comments and your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffiths. Right, clarification from the legal officer. Are there any points of clarification the solicitor would like to make?
I have a couple, Chair, if you don't mind. So, Louise Prince, legal advisor. First, it was in relation to a comment that I think Mr. Lloyd made. There is recourse available to residents if the licence were to be granted today on the current conditions put forward. anybody who has an issue with the conduct of a licence is able to make an application for the licence to be reviewed. It doesn't just have to be somebody that was a party to the hearing today, so that is available to you. And also, if you have issues with noise nuisance or any kind of public nuisance, you can also make or contact the council direct and the public protection team, and they can look into any complaints that you might have. In terms of decision making, members will take into consideration all of the relevant comments and submissions that have been made today. So anything that is in relation to planning that members feel isn't appropriate or relevant won't be considered when making their decision. But I wonder if it's possible either for Ross or for Miss Griffiths just to clarify a point, and I apologise, I probably should have raised this at the beginning of the meeting when it was talked about. The operation of the premises, it's been mentioned that it will be for six months of the year, and Ross said that that was on the application, but forgive me, I can't see anywhere where it says the months that the premises would be operating, and if it isn't on there, would Miss Griffiths be prepared to have those months added to the licence?
Absolutely.
Being 365 days of the year.
100%. Because it's outdoors, it will be April to the end of September. If the weather changes, it will be earlier in September. But it's al fresco, it's outdoor. There is absolutely no point.
Weather dependent.
It's weather dependent.
So, but you, just for clarity, Ms Griffiths, sorry to interrupt you, you would be prepared and happy for your licence to state that the opening and operating hours would be between the months from 1st of April to the 30th of September?
Yes, no objection at all, no.
Thank you. That's it, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Louise. Right, we will now withdraw to deliberate and make a decision. The hearing will close and you can leave the online meeting. All interested parties will be advised of the decision in writing within 5 working days of this hearing. The decision will be sent to you in the same way you communicated with the licensing team prior to the hearing, e.g. if you emailed your representations to the application, you will receive the decision by email. Any party who feels aggrieved by the decision of the committee has the right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court. This appeal must be made in writing within 21 days of the notice being received to Stafford Magistrates' Court. And with that, I now thank everybody for your attendance and for your contributions, and we now close the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.